My name is Patrick McGinnis, and I'm the guy who invented the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out. Today, FOMO is an epidemic, and it's changing us so much that it sort of feels like we're evolving into a new species. But FOMO doesn't have to take over your life. You can find the power to choose what you actually want and the courage to miss out on the rest. I'll show you how right here on FOMO Sapiens. Welcome to FOMO Sapiens, the show about finding the power to choose what you actually want in business and life and the courage to miss out on everything else. I'm your host, Patrick McGinnis, the creator of the term FOMO, and I'm coming at you from AW360 Studios and the global capital of FOMO, New York City. Once upon a time, people would dedicate precious real estate in their homes to a little something called a record collection. But with the passage of time, this became a cassette tape collection, then a CD collection, and today you store music on your hard drive or in the cloud. Nowadays, people who own records are usually hipsters who put a few around their living room as decoration or a sign of how cool they are. No matter how you consume music, however, it's always worth thinking about the people who discover and cultivate the artists who create the hits that we know and love. People who work in A&R, and that's short for artists and repertoire, scour the earth looking for the next new thing. But just like any of us, they're human, and they are not immune to FOMO when signing new talent. If you've ever wondered how they manage to make these kinds of decisions in a world filled with FOMO, then you're going to love today's show. Jacob Fain is the Senior Vice President of A&R and Head of Global Analytics and Research at Sony ATV Music Publishing, based in New York. He's signed such artists as the Chainsmokers, Of Monsters and Men, Leon Bridges, Russ, Passion Pit, Chase Rice, Parson James, and the Congos. He is also responsibility for the incorporation of data into the signing and development process of artists and writers. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. So I like to start with the same question every time, which is, what is giving you FOMO right now?
I would say that not even right now what gives us FOMO and gives me FOMO every day is wanting to make sure you don't miss the next big thing. In the music industry, we have the privilege of working with other people's art and talent, and you always want to get the new and exciting one, but obviously so does your competition, and you don't want to miss it out.
Okay.
That's, I think, every day.
This is what we're going to dive into today.
Yeah.
So take me kind of into the essence of the industry. So this isn't, when I think about the record industry, I mean, we've all seen the movies about like in the 1960s, the person who discovered some talent on a street corner or whatever it was.
A little bit more dramatic than in real life, but definitely.
How does it really work? What is the role of A&R traditionally, and how has it always kind of been?
Right. I mean, A&R guys at record companies and publishing companies are the ones who are entrusted with helping identify the acts that you want to bring on, and not just identifying, but actually courting them, making sure they understand an artist's vision for what they want to be, bringing them on board, and then most importantly, when they're signed to the company, when they're here, executing on behalf of the artist to fulfill that vision. And so it was really the A&R guys that were out there looking and hustling, and we received a lot of demos and CDs and tapes, and you'd sort through them and you'd listen to them, and if you heard something that was special and really moved you and you thought was going to change the world and be impactful, then let's go, man. Let's rock and roll. Let's get going. Let's sign it.
And so in a place like New York, I imagine you're out at like the clubs, trying to hear the artists who maybe haven't broken yet and trying to find people before they become the subject of everybody's FOMO and bidding.
Oh yeah, when I started, I knew the doormen and the bouncers and the bartenders at every club in the Lower East Side, at the Mercury Lounge, at Bowery Ballroom. Oh man, literally every club around New York, the Knitting Factory when it's still in Manhattan, that was what you did. It was a lot of that.
And did you find anybody in some of the artists that you've worked with in the past? Did any of them come out of those club dates that you just showed up with 7 people there?
Same process, but not actually from a live show. But yeah, we've definitely signed things that you didn't know anything about. You just heard something, and then it was wow. There's something really magical and special about that. This is someone I really want to work with.
So maybe if I start singing for you right now, there's a chance that I can turn this.
There is, and we have a guy from our finance department out there, so he can cut you the check. This is perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so that was the way it was before.
That was in 70s through. Let's just, for ease, 2000, early 2000s. That was basically what it was.
Okay. And then things changed. So what's going on today, and how have things changed?
Change, I would say they've changed, but things have been added. So gut always should, and thank God does, drive the music business. We work in an ethereal, artistic, soul-driven, passionate business where people are spilling out, their emotions into music, and so you always need to have gut leading that, and heart in the music guiding decision making. In addition to that, basically there's now a lot of data out there, and what we've been able to do is identify that by looking at that data, in addition to using gut, we can make more informed and better decisions. And that's done to help the artist and help our songwriters and help the business grow, which is good for everybody. And we now have almost like a second layer to the decision-making process. And that's kind of where the business is growing into.
And so these days, it's not that there's no gut at all. It's not that you hear, I'm trying to think of, all the examples I want to give are so cheesy. Like, you hear the next Carly Rae Jepsen, I'm clearing...
There's no cheesy, man. Like, no matter what the song, there's always passion behind it.
Okay.
Even though it may not, I don't love every song in the world, right?
Okay.
Nobody does, but there's always someone who likes something, which is the beauty of music.
So you hear that you're at somebody drops you a demo, or somebody who you trust comes along and says, listen to this person. You listen to them, and you have the gut feeling. It's there.
Sure.
You've added on top this analytical layer that allows you to make a better decision.
Correct. Absolutely. And
can it tell you no? Could you have somebody who everybody feels around the table like, oh, we love this person, they're awesome, but there's nothing to support them? Or do you think the gut still can sort of overwin the data?
There's never a no, because every artist deserves a shot, even if it's music that you may not really understand. But who's to judge what is valid in the art world, and whether it be music or anything. What it can help us do is say, we think that what's reasonable and healthy for the company is one thing, and this is what we're going to try to do to make sure that we're not just losing money, because if that happens, then there's no company. So we're not able to help our writers, and there's also a lot of people whose livelihood depends on that, who don't have jobs if we're hemorrhaging money.
Right.
It's really about trying to do what's best for the writers as well, and the artist, because doing a bad deal for an artist or a songwriter is really bad for them and disadvantageous to them. Nobody wins when you're stuck in some contract that you're indebted to, that you can't get out of, and you should be in a position of power and influence at all times. Now,
one thing that's interesting is you mentioned there's music publishing, which is where you are today, and then there's like the record companies, which is a different thing, and you've done that as well.
Yeah.
For the lay person out there, what's the difference?
Good question. About half the business doesn't know the difference, so don't worry, it's not the lay person.
Feel better.
So the master side, that's a record company, so the actual recording.
Yeah.
So for example, the Beatles recordings, those masters are owned by a record company. The copyrights, the actual songs themselves, are owned by a different company. That's the music publishing company that deals with the songwriting rights. There's only one master from the Beatles of Let It Be, but you can go on iTunes and buy 100 different versions of that song. Each different version is a new master, but it's still the same copyright, and that's essentially what music publishing is about, that song versus that master recording. So, that's the difference.
So when you hear a cover, that's the music publisher coming
Correct.
in.
Correct, that's the song.
To sell it.
It's a different person recording that song,
yeah.
But it's the same composition. Composition's a great word, right? That sounds kind of nerdy a little bit and
right.
a little more studious, but like that, it's what it is. It's a composition.
And you mentioned if part of what the data does is allows you to keep from putting people into bad deals. Like, what would a bad deal be in this industry?
I mean, you don't want to be in a contract with anything, no matter anyone, where you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
That's like really bad for the creative process. You want to be able to have fluidity and power of negotiation, and we win when writers and artists win. And
yeah.
So making sure that our writers and artists are not in deals that they're stuck, that is that's good for everybody.
Yeah. So one thing as I think about this, we were talking about gut is always important, and if you
Sure.
see and want to break talent, even if maybe you don't have the data to back them up, you'll go ahead anyway because you're making a bet on it. It's like being a venture capitalist, right?
100%
on this like startup.
Sure,
which is
it
an
is.
Artist.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I can imagine if you have an artist who's breaking or starting to get some name, and then everybody's trying to sign this person, and the offers are getting really stupid, and people are offering crazy stuff. I imagine that's where the analytics can be especially helpful in saying, does it make sense to bid like a crazy amount for this person?
Yeah, I mean that there is a component of that, but everything has a creative component to it, and you have to take risks to sign things. I mean, to build off what you said and twist it a little bit. There's often times where we can give bands everything they want and then some, because we're like, oh my God, this is huge and it's amazing, and guess what? Everything supports it. Like, hell yeah, man. I don't know if I can say hell, but
it's okay. This is family-friendly show. Just no F-bombs.
But like, let's go, man. Let's rock. I mean, because we're so focused around like just like giving an artist money, but like that's really important. But the real part is about an artistic partnership. And one of the things that analytics can do in addition to gut is help us help turn us on to things that we might not have had the foresight. We're at the end of the day, an art department is just a collection of 20 people. You can't really expect all 20 people to be perfect. Human error is natural, let alone with such a small group compared to the world consuming music globally. Yeah. So you can use data to help us see things that we may not be seeing. Hey man, we're missing this. Like, come on, this guy's amazing. Wow, you're right. How we were not paying attention to this? Let's rock. And then like that's what it's about. Cool. And people like to focus on the money, and that's natural. And as you said, it's New York, it's a business-minded city, but it drives a lot of, it opens doors and shines a light into a lot of areas that are, unexplored.
So without giving us all your secrets, all your trade
secrets.
I
can't, or else remember who's out there. He's going to knock me over the head in the middle of this.
Exactly. Well, the door will open.
The door will open, it's just a mask, I'm yanked, and we're done.
But what is the data that you're looking at when you're doing your analytics? Like, what are those inputs and how do you get them?
Yeah, I mean, without being too detailed, I mean, essentially, like, it's pretty straightforward. Like, and this is, the genius of it is that it's actually not that complex. Mm-hmm. What we're really doing is just watching what the business is doing, watching what the marketplace is doing, and observing it. That's it. We sit there and watch, and we see what the public wants. We see what music consumers are asking for, and we try to service that and give them that, and see where the trends are heading. That's it. And to do that, we monitor everything you would expect, right? How do music consumers interact with music? Through streaming platforms, through single buying, through tickets, through social media in some cases. So we're observers. It's not complex, and that's the thing. It's who are we to tell the world what they will like?
Yeah.
Better to sit back and see what everyone's raising their hands for, and there's a lot of surprises you get. There's a lot of really wonderful music. You're like, man, I'd never expected that to work, and it's so good. That's rad. Let's develop this and grow this and help build this wonderful musical moment. And that's some of the most rewarding work you can expect.
Do you ever look back and say, or you look at the trends and say, okay, interesting. Like in the last 3 months, we've had massive sales of 80s, pop or, something or some niche thing of country.
Right.
The country and, it's all of a sudden young people are buying country music. Should we try to find artists who do that? Does that happen or is that...
You get sounds and is what it is. You mentioned the 80s right before we started rolling. You were telling me you saw a band, St. Lucia, who we have the privilege of working with. I think he's fantastic. But you hear sounds start to creep up.
Yeah.
So you'll get... something will start to pop up and you're like, wow, man, that's a really 80s throwback synthy vibe. That's killer. I wouldn't have expected that sound to be popular. And then the next week, boop, there's another thing. And then it's all of a sudden you see sounds that are, out there anyway. And that's where the taste of the market is starting to turn.
Yeah.
And so these new acts and new songs are just beginning to creep up. And yeah, you definitely see that. Absolutely. Tastes are constantly evolving and merging too. 100%.
And then when you do these models or these analytical kind of exercises, is it I kind of think of this, this is my science fiction analysis of if I went to your office that there's this computer and then I press calculate button and then it gives a number. It's 32.
Yeah, big 10-page document.
It's 32. No. You should sign these 3 people. How do you actually use the data?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's right. I've people have come in and be like, hey, where's the red button, man? Where's the curtain? Look, we have a team of analysts that work with us in a variety of capacities. And as I said before, what we really are using that to do, or using that for, is to make sure that we're aware of things that we should be aware of, and understanding where the markets are going and what the trends are, so that we can just be conscious of that. We've all signed things that are countercurrent to that, and that's, you got to do that too. So there's no printout that's like, sign these things, they're big, okay, because that's not what it's about. Like, you need to understand like the artistry of it and the music of it and the quality of the songwriting, but you want to do that while still being aware of what's going on. It's like the weather, right? You may not wear a raincoat every day, but you at least want to know if it's going to rain.
Yeah.
And if you're like me and you have like an obnoxious golf umbrella, you never wear a raincoat because you're basically in like a tent. So you're like,
that's New York. And then
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Okay.
With under the scaffolding, knocking it, and like,
people.
Yeah, I'm real. It's not fun to be around me on the rain.
So do you? And it's raining today.
It is pouring.
How does social media play into all of this?
You want to be aware of it. You definitely want to know what's happening with an artist's socials. And again, if it's there, because, we sign things that are just songs. We sign artists that have nothing. It's like, here are some demos, and you're like, whoa, what is this? Like, this isn't, like Leon Bridges. I thank God his manager, who's a really close friend of mine, walked into my office and just handed me demos and was like, no socials. And I was like blown away. But that's rare. You want to watch them. Pretty obvious, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are the three kind of main players, and it's another data point. You just want to be aware of it, like the weather. If you choose to act on it, that's up to you, but you want to be aware of it.
How about if somebody has a massive social following? Like, say tomorrow, Selena Gomez already has a music career.
She does create music.
Actually, I'm a fan, but
sure, why not? Selena's awesome.
But you have an artist who has a major following. Like, say Kim Kardashian decides to become a singer.
Okay.
And she's not particularly good, but she comes to you, she wants to sign with you. You have the analytics, but like the music isn't there. How do you think about that? I mean, is that something palatable, or?
Look, no decision. As I said before, decisions are neither all data or all gut. There's an overlap and a different degree of the ingredients in every decision. And by the way, there has been since the beginning of this business. People who think that when they were sitting at the Mercury Lounge watching a band perform in, deciding if they were going to want to sign it, that's data. They're looking at who's singing the songs, how many people are in the crowd, are people into it or not. It's a different data point than you may, be used to. When you think of data, you think of like a number, but it's still data. And for situations like that, you have to evaluate it like anything else. Do I vibe with this project? Do I think that there's real longevity to it? Do I think that, most importantly, if there's a takeaway from this entire discussion, which has ironically nothing to do with FOMO, but the songs are the most important thing.
Yeah.
I take it back. There's the most FOMO in the music business relating to songs, because no one wants to pass on a song that they think could be a hit, but there's always a debate whether or not you want to take it. But the songs are the determining factor. It's
a lot like publishing. Publishing is this mix of art and data, but what really at the end of the day matters is the ideas. So if you could have a great author, but if the concept is crap, like, a lot of people won't touch it. Right?
Yeah, and you see that a lot. Like, there's some amazing artists that just haven't broken out as big as they could because the songs aren't there yet. Yeah. There's FOMO, man. It's like, oh man, I really want to cut this record, but I don't know, like, this could be the song, and I don't know if I should take this record or this record, and there is a ton of FOMO in that.
That's the FOMO Sapiens.
That is the political, and by the way, that is the political game of the century on negotiating for songs. It gets really complicated.
Tell me something. How does streaming affect all of this?
Streaming has been, as I'm sure anyone who's watching this has an interest in the music industry knows, a real boom for this business. It has taken us out of that 2000 or early 2000s slump and really given birth to the next wave of growth. So it's pretty impactful, and it drives a lot of the data because most of consumption is now all streaming.
Do they give it to you? Can you get the data if you call these guys?
It is a pretty complicated dynamic where the biggest issue the data users have right now is access to data. And the real challenge we have is getting it. I think that Spotify and Apple and Pandora and Shazam and everyone realized a real boon for them was in this enormous, trove of data they didn't think was really going to be worth much. And then as the business moves into, contemporary music companies are all data focused, and so they recognize they have an asset that all these companies are really going to want. So getting that has become quite complicated.
I can imagine some of them are thinking, I have all this data, why don't I use it to start breaking artists?
Or start getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's both.
And.
Both. Yeah. Look at, Spotify is trying to do direct deals with artists. I mean, yeah, sure. Absolutely. We can foresee who's going to be successful, who's young and up and coming and unsigned on our platform. We can see it faster than anybody else because it's our information. Let's call them. Let's call everybody underneath a specific threshold and do direct deals with all of them.
But I would imagine you would agree with me if I were to say, that's fine, you can sign an artist, but if you don't have the system behind them, if you don't have the support to develop the talent, you could create a lot of one-hit wonders, but creating artists with sort of duration and careers is much harder.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And there's one-hit wonders happen, and that there's a spark there. It's up to the team around an artist and the artist to really cultivate that spark and turn it into something more. But it's certainly like a real long-term career. That is the hardest thing there is.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah, I just remember this was probably 15 years ago now, there was a cover of Umbrella as a ballad. Remember that?
I do.
She was great.
Yeah.
And I can't remember her name, but that song was huge. Everybody
that song's
listened to
amazing.
It. And
that demo was like a one listen. Like that demo was like...
Yeah, exactly. And then, but you've never heard her name again. And it's sort of like, because all the other parts of the system weren't there to sustain that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's one of the reasons why I think music companies in a lot of forms are still around. Like, it really does take an army. Yeah. Breaking as an artist is one of the most difficult things to do. Yet another reason why data is so important, because data drives so much of the marketing efforts, because you need to be calculated, because it's so hard, man. Like, you can have that spark, which is what everybody dreams of, right? The hit, the moment, and it can still not happen.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. Like, there's so many songs that are like... Yeah, exactly. There's so many songs you're like, oh my God, we're moving. Nope, didn't make it. It's brutal, heartbreaking. Yeah. It's very tough.
So knowing all of this and the fact that there is this data overlay, that the industry is changing, that all these things are happening, if you kind of were giving advice to a young artist, which I'm sure you do all the time, by the way, people probably call you all the time and say, like, my daughter's a really good singer. I'm sure, right? Or like,
there's a lot
my
of that.
son's such a good rapper.
My aunt sends a lot of people my way. Yeah,
good,
no, that's all good.
So, like, what is the advice that you would give to a young person who wants to, given the knowledge of these dynamics, to use them to their advantage?
I would say that, and this is so true, and it's so good too, because thank God we're in this situation, all of the tools to break are now squarely in an artist's hands, thank God. The barriers to entry into the music marketplace are finally broken down, thank God. An artist can reach all of his or her fans without the need of a record company, a publishing company, anything, because artists are younger and they've grown up using the tools that fans use to consume music. Instagram, Facebook, streaming, everything. And they know how to talk to their fans, and they know the value of transparency and of creating a culture around their artist persona and how the music can become an extension of that.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do, I believe, for whatever it's worth, in the beginning is to rush to immediately sign a deal. Go out there and start doing it yourself. Wait until all the labels and everyone are knocking on your door, and then look at doing a deal. You don't need anybody until they're breaking down your front door to work with you.
It's so true. It's just like venture capital, where
100%.
You meet a startup founder and they're looking to raise the money day one, and it's sort of like, why don't you wait until you have traction and you have leverage to actually sign a deal that makes sense for you, rather than being a price taker and taking whatever they offer you.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of parallels in that.
Wow,
that's correct.
So, industry's changing. Where do you think we're going to be in 10 years? Will there be record album labels? Will there be what do you think is coming down?
Yeah, honestly, I think there's going to be two meaningful changes. I think that as in building on what I was saying before, which is a really good thing, the power dynamic is going to continue to shift in favor of artists, which is really good. Record contracts were predominantly favoring only, I hate to say this might come back to bite me, they were definitely favoring record companies, not artists. Like that. I'm sorry. The royalty split was ridiculous, and artists were they were loss leaders. Like, I'm not going to make money on my records, but I'm going to make money on the road. The deal structures for masters, for records, are becoming much more fair, and artists are more empowered. Anytime an artist is empowered to drive the process, that's a good thing. And then second, I think we're moving away from albums. if you look at the way the record is approached, like albums are no longer entirely composed of new music. It's a lot of songs that have already been released and a few new ones, because people want regular release of content. There's about 30,000 new songs released a week, and in order to stay in front of people's minds, you need to be continuing to put out music.
It's so true. When I go to iTunes, I'll buy a track of this person or that person because I heard it on TV or I heard it in the radio or what. I don't listen to the radio, but I heard it somewhere in a restaurant. I Shazammed it. The only time I've seen people buy that you see the albums, really breaking is when it's a soundtrack. Right?
Yeah,
then it's
soundtracks can be, right. Hamilton was huge, right?
Yeah, of course.
The Greatest Showman. Yeah, there's a lot.
And those you always see them at the top or whatever. But yeah, otherwise it is, and artists are starting to create that way, and it's starting to become. And there's what's up. This is kind of a non sequitur, but I want to since I have you, it's
bring it on,
let's
man.
Answer Patrick's
We're
questions.
here, man. I'm in.
I hope that the listeners want to know this as well. What is up? Like it's all collaborations now. Like
there's a lot of collaborating.
So like
yeah.
Is that financially smart for the artist? Like, is it just that it's...
Sure, if it ends up being a song that's a hit, absolutely. Sure. Better than not having a hit.
Do they all have writing credits on it usually?
Everything's circumstantial. Okay. Generally, yeah, right? I mean, it depends. People who are kind of coming into a song and just cutting a vocal might still get a piece of the publishing and the writing and, just maybe not as big, but it's great. I mean, think of all of the great new sounds and blending of genres that have come from people working together more. Yeah. That's more of empowering the artist. Let artists be artists. The worst thing we can do is over-involve ourselves in an artist process. We are there to support the artists, and they're the ones that are driving this, and look at how successful it is. It's great. It's really good for the business.
No, it's very true, and I think you're right. It's a great way for artists to go across genre. Like if you think about the middle, that song, the Zed song.
Sure, everyone loves that. Yeah,
I love that song.
It's a good song.
And they brought in the
there's
country,
a New York Times thing
Marin something.
Marin Morris.
Yeah, so she's a country singer. Like she would have never been with Zed, and now. That works so well for her. Now she can do totally new things with it.
Totally. Florida Georgia Line had a great collab. Sam Smith and Calvin Harris. Yeah. Right. Those are two worlds you may not have thought could work together. And absolutely.
See, your life is so much cooler than mine. It's like ridiculous.
That's the greatest misconception. People think that the music. I mean, look, I'm very fortunate. I love working in music, but there is a real misconception. People think that it is just an all-day party. That is very much not true. This is a growing industry, and that means there's responsibility to that. And as I said before, we have the privilege of working with other people's art. Mm. We're entrusted to do that. There's a real set of, that weighs on you. There's responsibility to that. We get to go home at night and that's it. It's not our life that's out there in the front of everybody. Yeah. It's not our songwriting that's out there in front of everybody. So, you take that seriously.
No, it's something we forget, I think, as listeners, is you think of the poet or the struggling actor as being, sort of so exposed, but it's true that even the most successful artists that we can think of these are people who are creators, and they're not, they may have lots of people behind them helping them, but at the end of the day, they're putting themselves out there.
Oh yeah, especially now in the world of social media where everyone sees everything you do and everyone's judging you, and it's so easy to pass judgment and comment on that. I mean, it can be the best and worst thing to start seeing what people think of you on the internet, because it can lead to the pretty dramatic emotional swings.
I know.
It's brutal.
I had a troll on Amazon who trolled my book. And seriously, this guy or lady, I think it was a guy though, I made a speech and the person didn't like something I said. I said something political, which by the way, I'll never do again.
Don't do that. That's
never
bad
be
news.
Political
there you
unless you really want to get trolled.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, I got a 1-star review that I'm a terrible person.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
That I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. It's like, let me invite you to my hometown in Maine and show you that wasn't the case. But it was, in my own little baby way, I sort of got to understand, like, when you see artists, for example, who put themselves out there and maybe do things that are unpopular, like the Dixie Chicks did during the, when they were sort of protesting the war and stuff, and people hated them.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And doing something that's right and countercurrent to what may be popular at the moment, that can invite some serious backlash online too.
Yeah. So this has been super interesting. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, appreciate having me.
So our listeners now, everybody, I mean, you said your life's not that cool, but
it's cool for other reasons that, I feel fortunate to work in music, but it's cool for other reasons.
So there we go. So if people want to find out more about you or follow you, where's the best place they can find you? Instagram
and Twitter are always the easiest. It's just at Jake Fain for both. And, also exploring Sony ATV. Very happy to be with such a great publishing company.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you, man.
Pleasure. All right, so I don't know about you, but now I'm going to listen to music a little differently than I did before. And now I want to transition to our faux moment of the week. So this week I was reading an article on Cult of Mac about this hot new feature on the iPhone that is giving people FOMO. And it's this thing that integrates with your watch, your Apple Watch, and allows you to talk as if you're on a walkie-talkie. But unfortunately, all of these people who have this new Apple Watch and are supposedly able to use this feature can't enjoy it because you need to find somebody who has the exact updated version of the watch to use it. So you have all these people who bought this new watch, and sadly for them, they have tons of FOMO. But I have a news flash for all of you people who have bought this watch. You may have FOMO, but you also haven't gotten punched in the face yet, because when you start talking on your watch all day like it's a walkie-talkie, you're probably going to alienate all the people around you. So for a little longer, we can live in a world without people talking at their watches like they're Dick Tracy. With that, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. If you want to find more about me, more about FOMO Sapiens, or the 10% Entrepreneur, my book about entrepreneurship FOMO, you can go to patrickmcginnis.com. There you'll find tons of resources. You can get in touch with me, you can follow me on social, or you can send me an email with your own idea for the FOMO moment of the week at letsconnect@patrickmcginnis.com. And I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, take care of yourselves, FOMO Sapiens.